Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today. We have a great set of alumni panelists here to share their experience and answer your questions on scientific research and product development. We'll be starting out by asking each of the alumni to give a brief overview of their career path and current role, and then we'll open it up for questions. Students, feel free to type questions in the chat or use the raise hand feature. And just as a reminder, we'll ask that everyone mute their microphones when they're not speaking, just to avoid some of that feedback. All right. Michelle, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hi. Yeah, I'm Michelle. And I guess first to give a little background about my my career or my education and career path to where I am today. So I got my bachelor's actually not at UW-Madison. I went to a small liberal arts college called Luther College in Iowa. I got a chemistry degree, and then I was really interested in pursuing graduate studies, and that's where I went to UW-Madison. I got a chemistry PhD, but one thing I was really excited about while I was pursuing this degree was the interface of chemistry and biology. So I have a chemical biology endorsement or a path per se. I worked in Helen Blackwell's lab, if anybody's interacted with her at your time at UW. And we studied bacterial chemical communication and interfering with this communication to prevent getting people sick. And so what I was really excited about in that role or in my graduate career was understanding those chemical signals and how when we change little bits, how that can really improve their efficacy or decrease their efficacy. I was also really interested in tech development. So I actually did my postdoc at Promega, and I understand another panelist is from Promega today, a biotech company in Madison. I learned a lot about different asset development and tool development, and that was my introduction to industry. From there, I now got a job at Amgen, which is a pharmaceutical company in California. I'm continuing that trajectory of assay development, tech development, but rather than at Promega where they're making the tech, I'm now applying that to finding really early stage pharmaceutical targets that we then, as a big team, it's not just me, we develop those chemical moieties of interest and make them into the drugs that eventually, hopefully, are used in the clinic. So yeah, that's my background.
Thank you for sharing, Michelle. Laurie, would you like to go next?
Sure. That was really interesting, actually. I'd love to talk more about that. So I'm Laurie Hoffman. I'm the oldest panelist, so I've got a little bit of a longer history and not as detailed discussion. I'm a Badger first. I'm a former marching band member. I'm the mother of a Badger and the mother of a future Badger. My son is a sophomore chemical engineering major, and my younger son will be starting in the fall as an industrial engineering major. I started out at Upjohn, which is now part of Pfizer in the Kalamazoo, Michigan area. Initially, when I had interviewed with a couple of companies, I had sort of assumed as a chemist I was going to end up in New Jersey or Pennsylvania, but I was pleasantly surprised that Upjohn had come through the interview process on site, which I thought Madison did a great job of bringing in companies. There's a big draw for scientists out of UW-Madison. And so when I found that there was a Midwest option and the people were, as you would expect, Midwest nice, I jumped at the chance. And so I spent about 5 years there before moving on to a process support, process development role for a contract manufacturer of active ingredients and other fine chemicals called Regis Technologies. That was in the Chicagoland area. And I spent about 2 more years in the lab there before moving into project management, business development, and a variety of roles for them. Then my career sort of moved on to another contract chemistry services company, Albany Molecular Research, now known as AMRI, where I was in the business development, more of a sales business development type role, but also acting as a liaison with the clients. And the interesting thing that AMRI had is they were more expansive in the range of chemistry services they could provide, not just the process development and scale up into commercial manufacturing like Regis, but really they had libraries of compounds, they had computational chemistry, medicinal chemists, structural activity relationship type focus and things like that. So I learned a lot more about the whole drug development process. And that's actually one thing early in my career. A lot of my colleagues were going to the American Chemical Society meetings, and that really wasn't a strong interest of mine. So I found a different pathway, and it opened up my eyes to the pharmaceutical industry. And I found it fascinating then, and I still find it fascinating to this day. So my career sort of reflects that, because the first years leading up to my AMRI time were really on the active ingredient side. And once I left AMRI, I actually went into finished dosage form with a brand new company at the time, Sagent Pharmaceuticals, managing projects that were being run by contract development and manufacturing companies around the world. First foray into generics, first foray into patents and things like that. And again, just opened my eyes to more fascinating aspects. And since then, I've done some consulting. I've worked on the other side of the table for contract manufacturers, and now I'm back presently running the alliance management function for a small specialty generic company, Slayback Pharma.
Thank you so much for sharing, Laurie. Jenny, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Thank you very much. My name is Jenny Loeb. I am the other Promega connection here today. My title is ridiculously long, but basically I'm a global market segment manager focused on the academic government market segment. I'll talk about that more in a couple minutes, but I am a very proud two-time UW alum. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and a master's degree in biotechnology from UW. My career trajectory is a little bit, I like to describe it as a winding road a little bit. When I was in your shoes, if you had asked me what I was going to do when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, it's like, I would have said, oh, easy, I'm going to graduate, go on, get my PhD, become a professor, discover the cure for HIV or cancer, and then win the Nobel Prize. Like, bam, duh. That's not what happened, and that's okay. I ended up where I'm supposed to be. But after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I spent about 4 years at UW running 2 research labs in the School of Pharmacy. One focused on GI immunology, the other focused on cardiovascular medicine. So I was managing the lab and running a ton of experiments. The PIs I was working for decided to leave the university, and I moved into industry at that time. And I took my first position doing R&D, doing product development for a company that is part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. It's their legacy Pierce biotechnology product line. And while I was there, I was developing proteomics products and tools. So a lot of things for researchers looking at post-translational modifications of proteins, as well as subcellular organelle isolation kits. After that, I moved into what at the time was my dream job, and I was able to get hired by Gilead Pharmaceuticals. I was in their early drug discovery research program. I was building assays like Michelle to screen compounds in their cardiovascular medicine line. It was an amazing job, amazing team, super fun, loved every minute of it. But unfortunately, as what happens oftentimes in our industry, is they decided to shut the site that I was at down. So unfortunately, I was laid off, but I was lucky enough in that when I had left Thermo, I had made really good connections, and I was able to get hired on at a different Thermo site. I was hired at their legacy Dharmacon site, which is no longer part of Thermo. It was then sold to GE, who just sold it to Horizon, who is now being bought by, I think, Agilent or PerkinElmer, one of the two. Anyway, doesn't matter. But I was hired in to do R&D product development there. At that site, I was doing qPCR assay development. That was a new area of interest that they were launching products into, as well as their legacy RNAi or RNA interference product lines. While I was there, I had what I describe as a terrible human being of a boss, and she's really what pushed me to go back to school. So I moved back to Madison and enrolled in the 2-year UW Masters in Biotech program. So while I was getting my master's degree, I was also running a large 30-person lab in the Department of Biomedical Engineering on site, where we had funding from the Gates Foundation to help move forward developing a nucleic acid purification device that could be used in under-resourced areas. About 3 months before I graduated, I took a leap of faith and I moved to the dark side. So I moved away from the bench and I took my first product development marketing position with Promega, and I've been with Promega ever since. So it's now 8 years. I started out as a product specialist managing their genomics portfolio of products, qPCR, reverse transcriptase enzymes, cloning products, moved a little bit around there. And then about 2.5 years ago, I moved into my current role where I focus on the academic government market segment. And I've gone back a little bit more to my roots and am focusing on our proteomics products. But what's really cool and what gets me really excited to talk to you guys today is, as part of my position, I run this awesome program. Yes, I'm totally biased because it's mine. That's focused on educating and supporting early career scientists just like you. So undergrads, grad students, postdocs, educating, supporting them about careers, about how to do science, how to think like a scientist. There's a website we've built that has a lot of info for you, totally free. So check out the Student Resource Center, and looking forward to a lively discussion. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Viva, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name's Viva St. Valentine. I feel like I'm kind of a little bit of a cheat here because I only did 1 year at UW-Madison. It was my last year of my undergrad. I got my degree in biochemistry. I did my first 3 years and a lot of my early lab work in Edinburgh, Scotland. And then I moved back to the United States for my final year, where I graduated with a biochemistry degree and a Spanish degree from UW-Madison. I'm now currently enrolled in a UC San Diego program remotely, part-time, and then my full-time position is a group leader at PPD in Middleton, Wisconsin. But we'll kind of touch on that. I'll kind of go back to where I started. So when I graduated from UW-Madison, I started at a small manufacturing company with an emphasis in fluid bed coaters. So we did a lot with capsules, coated drugs, taste massing, that sort of thing. I started as a bench chemist. Spent quite a bit of time doing bench chemistry, dissolution, HPLC, method development, validations, to which point I moved to the formulations department, which was a really unique, kind of mind-changing experience for me. So in that position, I spent a lot of time designing sample matrices with clients to do their manufacturing all in-house, and then being that liaison between the laboratory, the client, and communicating needs between the two of them. About 3 years ago, I did decide to make a job change. I moved to PPD, which is a CRO, which stands for a Contract Research Organization. It essentially means that PPD does not manufacture anything on our site. So we don't actually make drug products. We don't have any manufacturing facilities. What we do is we're hired by manufacturing or other drug pharmaceutical companies to test their products for them, or in some way assist them to eventual, hopefully, market release through the FDA or other worldly regulatory bodies, whether that's the EP, the JP, FDA, whatever it is. So currently I am a group leader, which means I lead a small team with an emphasis in inhaled products and device testing. So what my team does is we are specialized for method development and validation. So we don't do a lot of finished product work. We essentially take on newer products or products that are being freshly manufactured, sometimes for the first time by a client. They allow us to develop and design their methods and then validate those methods to have a body of data essentially to prove that they work as intended to test their product. So that's kind of my little worldly route. It's significantly shorter, but getting there. So thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for sharing. That's super interesting. Students, if you have questions, again, feel free to put those in the chat or use the raise hand function. The next question that I have for you all is, what advice do you have for students who want to go into this field? Or what should students be doing to prepare themselves?
I can start. I think that's a great question. I kind of went through this semi-recently, I suppose. One thing that I think I hear a lot from students who are thinking about graduating or will be graduating soon is whether they want to go on to grad school or want to go straight into the industry. In the Madison area specifically, it's not hard to get into the industry. There's a huge competition of companies in the area. There's tons of postings, whether you're looking at PPD, whether you're looking at CPI, Arrowhead, there's just a lot of postings. It's not hard to get into a bench chemistry position specifically. That being said, considering making that decision between going to grad school and starting an industry, I hear a lot of students kind of swaying themselves towards going to grad school, but I really implore people to investigate the benefits of going straight into industry. One, you can gain relevant experience right away, and two, a lot of companies are willing to pay for some or all of your schooling. So, just something to consider to maybe get some of that conversations and thought processes going as you get closer to graduation.
If I can add to that, actually, that's all really good advice, actually. I was one of the few people in my group of friends that didn't go to grad school or med school. And I watched some flourish and some struggle, but my path ultimately led me directly into the industry with the idea that I might go back someday. But what I think it might help if you do dabble in the industry first is to figure out, it helps you define what you like and what you don't like from a work perspective, your type of work, if you really want to be in the lab or not. I actually was able to work as an interviewer of college students when I was at Upjohn, and some of the kids came in very eager to be lab personnel for the rest of their lives. And one guy came in and said, this is only going to be for a year and then I'm going to move on. Not your best interview technique, but at least he was honest. And so I do recommend the academic or the industrial route if you're not certain that you want to go to grad school, because you can figure out a lot about who you are, how you are, and what you really want.
I just want to add one more bit to what Viva and Laurie have already said, which is fantastic advice, and that is, I talk to a lot of students as part of my job in this initiative that I run, and what I found is people who have taken a year or two after undergrad and they've gone out and they've worked in industry and then gone to grad school, they are really, really motivated because they know what they're trying to get back to, or they know what it's like, and they tend to move through grad school much faster. That's not always the case, but it does give you a little bit of perspective of what exactly you're going, working towards and where you want to get back to. And it puts in your mind, because you're networking and you're meeting people while you're in those positions of what skills and other things you need to build upon to get where you need to go. So that's just something else I would consider. Some people will tell you, oh my gosh, taking a year or two off, that's the worst thing you can do. If you're not sure, I would say test the waters in industry, because you'll be very sure. You hate to start something and get into it and be like, this is not for me. With a job, you can always switch. It's much easier to say, yeah, I don't like working at the bench. I'm going to go do this instead, make that leap. It's much harder if you're in grad school to just up and leave. So
I'll add one more bit to all this. So I actually went straight to grad school right after undergrad. And I 100% agree with everybody's comments that there's so much value if you want to take a year or two to explore. My thought process was I had the opportunity during my undergrad to explore beyond just a standard academic lab in my research experiences. So I was in a national lab and I was in a private research institute. And those really showed me, oh, they're right from the get-go, like there's jobs outside of academia, and that was super helpful. I think when you, if you're at a great research institution like UW, sometimes your only research experiences, which are fantastic, are in those academic environments. So when I was seeing these other institutes, I saw basically one of the fastest ways to get to like a leadership or management position was to have either a master's or a PhD. And so my thought process was, okay, those are the type of like big picture jobs I'm really interested in, maybe down the line. And I know that, okay, I can see myself in not academia doing a research position. And so that felt enabling for when I hopped into grad school. I had some of those blinders off, that there were careers and jobs outside of academia. So that was super useful. So for a current undergraduate student, I would say definitely get research experience as just making sure you like the bench. And then if you can take advantage of some of these like alternative lab experiences, like if you're in a main lab or an academic lab for the school year, maybe during the summer, try something just totally different. That's a great way to get some of that insight as well.